Hello, Nature Journalers. I'm Kate. I'm a nature journaler and a nature journal educator. And today I'm going to walk through the John Muir Laws sketchbook for nature journaling and tell you why it's so great and suggest a couple tweaks to make it even better. So let's get started. This is a book put out by John Muir Laws, Jack. It's a sketchbook specifically for nature journaling. It's great. I splurge and use one of these about every third time I go through a nature journal, and I really love it. And here's why. So first of all, it has this wonderful band, so it'll kind of stay open or closed in the field. You can use it when you're working in the field, kind of make sure your pages stay in place. It's got really nice paper. It takes water media, it takes pencil, it takes ink really well. And at the back it has some toned paper, so you can experiment with that if that is new or just as kind of a fun way to wrap up a journal. It also in the back has a whole section of back matter which is reference material from John Muir Laws about nature journaling, which is lovely to have in the book, including handy things like a ruler and tips and tricks on making the most of your nature journaling experience. So it's super fabulous, and there's a couple tweaks that will make it even better. So, for example, if you go to the very back of the book, it just has this open back page, whereas many other journals, Moleskine, etc., will actually have a back pocket. So one of the first things I do when I get the Jack journal is to add a back pocket to it. So let's go ahead and do that now, because there's a couple little tweaks that'll make it work well for you. So you start out with the journal, open it up to the back, and then you'll want a basic envelope that's bigger than, a little one, but it should fit really easily within these two rivets and by the back cover. So we've got this envelope, and we don't want it as a pocket, not as an envelope, otherwise it gets too fussy. So you can cut the top off so that it makes a nice pocket, and then stick it in. Now you want to make sure the pocket is going this direction, not out, so if you drop your journal or you hold it a certain way, it doesn't just all disgorge, become a vomit pocket instead of an actual holding pocket. And I like to place it first with a little bit of glue stick. Kind of zoomed around there. Just enough to hold it down so it doesn't shimmy when you tape it in. So make sure it's oriented the right way. It's got some nice spacing. Leave a little room so you can tape it in and then stick that down. You can use whatever tape you want. You can use just regular cello tape or invisible tape. It'll last for a while. It might pull up, in which case you just repair it. But don't go over the edge of the pocket, because this area is going to get quite a bit of wear. Just go right up to the edge. I'm using short pieces just to get it kind of stuck down. And then I want it to be hella stout, so I'll go ahead and give it a full taping all the way around the edges. You can also use packing tape if you like. That tends to be a little sturdier, but really with wear it might pull off anyway, so you might need to repair it over time. I'm a conscientious taper, so I'm using a lot. And then once you have that pocket, you have a place you can tuck all of the little bits and pieces that help out your nature journaling practice. So that is the first tweak I do to the great journal. The second tweak I do is adding a paper ruler to the inside. Now there is a ruler in the back matter, so you can always flip around to wherever it is and use that if you're out in the field to measure things. This is only in centimeters and millimeters, which is great. That's the language of science. But if you grew up in the United States, maybe you're more familiar with inches, etc. So what I do is go ahead and put in a little paper ruler in the front of each journal. And this little paper ruler is something you can make yourself. It's got inches on one side, it's got centimeters on the other. They will never line up. You know that. So I'm going to take this little paper ruler and stick it right in the front of the journal. To do that, I'm actually going to use a little glassine pocket and stick that in. It's kind of hard to see, but it's the kind of little pocket that you get on direct mailings that you might receive. Something, say, like this. When you get one of these, you can cut it open and cut out the little visible window envelope. You can trim it pretty narrowly, all four sides. This can all be recycled. And then you have this window envelope. Sometimes it'll get a little bit disconnected. That's okay. That's not going to matter. You do, however, want one that is thick enough, wide enough, that it can easily hold your ruler. So this one's a little too narrow. So make sure you have one that's wide enough to well and easily kind of go around the edge of the ruler. And then, because it's going to be a pocket, you just cut it in half so you can easily get the ruler in and out. And then you can decide, wherever you want to stick it. I usually like the inside corner. And again, with some basic cellophane tape, stick that right down. You don't need to be too careful, too precious, trying to keep it from going anywhere. And then you have this little pocket where your ruler is always with you. So those two tweaks make this journal, which is already fabulous, even more fun. And to give a demo just briefly of how the pages kind of take water and journaling material, they do really well with just basic pencil. This is a number 2 mechanical pencil. You can get really nice kind of grays and velvety blacks. It takes water media well without bleeding through, and pen and ink, which is also really helpful in a journal. You don't want a lot of bleed through and mess. You can actually add a lot of water. I'm a pretty watery watercolor, so this kind of scene took a lot of heavy use, and there's no buckling, no bleed through. And then the back pages that are toned are so wonderful because you can really bring in added whites and kind of work both directions. You can darken the page with pigment and color, ink, and you can bring it back with some really bright highlights, which really make it sparkle. So that is my suggestion for the already fabulous and now even more fabulous sketchbook for nature journaling by John Muir Laws. Happy nature journaling!